You are listening to My HR Buzz, brought to you by My HR Concierge. Hosted by Chris Cooley, we'll bring you various topics and guests to shed light on the often confusing world of HR and also employee screening. We'll be putting the human in human resources.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I think we have a great topic. We've got Mark Emery, who is the CEO of Juvo Jobs, with us today. And we're going to talk about how can companies that maybe do not have remote positions combat the job market where there are so many today that are looking for remote positions. So how do we bring those workers into our workforce? And thanks for joining us today, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Always a pleasure to spend a little time with you. We appreciate your partnership and look forward to seeing if we can answer some questions and help some people out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as we talked about, a lot of these groups, like the subways of the world, and these places that you have to have a person that's working there physically, right?
Yeah.
How do we combat that? What are some ways? Because I was actually doing research, imagine that, before this. And, I was looking in U.S. Career Institute. Basically, they said that 2/3 of workers or job seekers say remote work is the most important aspect of the job over financial, over benefits,
Yeah.
over all of those different things. So how do we combat that when there's that, this thought in the workplace, that's what they're looking for?
Well, I think you mentioned Subway, and I think there's segments of the workforce that are used to having the ability to have remote work, or the option, if you will, for remote work. Really to break it down, you've got, and it's more the pay, the type of pay, I think, which defines the workforce for it. More salaried workers have that option to them, whether they're office people. Obviously, if you're working in a dentist office or something like that, but if you're in a business where you're running software, those are the kind of things. So that is where remote work really comes into play. There's 80 million people in the United States who don't have the option. Let me phrase that. There's 80 million jobs in the U.S. that don't have that option, that you've got to be there. If it's a warehouse, if it's a subway, like you mentioned, even school teachers get remote work, right? Virtual. So I think you need to understand as an employer where you fit in the mix, and then realize who your workforce is. Is your workforce baby boomers who have more of that option for them versus you run an ice cream shop, and a lot of times you hire high school workers. So I think coming to the realization of what you're dealing with in your workforce is part of it. The gig economy is another, for lack of a better term, competitor, if you will, in that process. Because if it's a gig work, then you can have, it's really funny. So gig work is really what the temp agency was, or temporary work was, back in the early 2000s, in the 90s. So as an employer, I think understanding your workforce, understanding what is a competition for you to have an employer on place, is the first step you need to look at. If you are competing in an environment where there's a lot of options for remote work, as an employer who has the capacity to offer remote work, it's a realization. And the way that you can compete with that is offer remote work. Now, if you're an employer, like we've talked about, the subways and the warehouses and stuff, and you have to have them on site to do physical work or interact with your customer base and those kind of things, then you need to look at how to be flexible. Number one, flexibility within the schedule that the employers are looking for. And look, we all like flexibility. As some employers will say, well, I've got to have you here from 9 to 5. I understand my hours of business are 9 to 5, 8 to 5. But as an employer, you can say, look, I'm willing to hire someone who would like to work from 7 to noon,
Mm-hmm.
and then find another employee who's willing to work from noon to 7,
Yeah.
maybe.
And there's some employer benefits to that too, right? Because now, depending on what they want to do, maybe you don't have the benefits cost.
That's exactly right.
Or
I mean, so
the
go ahead.
ACA requirements kind of start falling because those guys fall under the 30-hour rule. So yeah, to your point, yeah, there's some benefits for the employer there as well.
Well, and a lot of companies think I want 5 employees because this is what I need to run my business. Well, for flexibility, maybe you have 8 or you have 10 for the situation that we're talking about. I think what you need to define as an employer is what is really important in running your business. Is it important for me to have someone who is smiling and interacts with those customers?
Mm-hmm.
That is, I could hire Chris. I could hire you that you have to be here from 9 to 5. But if you're typically miserable between 3 and 5, you're not necessarily the best thing for my business.
Right.
So, and yes, can we go out and find other people? Possibly. There are 7 million more job openings than there are people in today's economy. And that's down from 8 million. So the premise of the old school, well, all I've got to do is these things. I'm not telling anybody how to run their business, but we're going to share market information that hopefully helps you understand how, as an employer, you've got to do things to run your business. Because you can have all the rules and regulations in the world that you want, but if nobody wants to work for you, you don't have a business.
Yeah. Yeah. And and to your point, with the labor market so tight, there are things that we probably would do today as an employer that we would not do 3 years ago, 4 years ago, as far as how we staff and how we do those things.
Yeah, without question. Another big piece of it, if in fact they have to be there, and this is something that we've personally really focused on, is how long does it take somebody to get to work?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Atlanta, and there's distance has nothing to do with it. It's the amount of time.
Yeah.
So understanding the workforce, that is more, if I have to have people in my physical presence and in my building, it is much more advantageous to find somebody who lives close. So flexibility, if we're getting down to tips, flexibility and your ability to offer schedule and work with the individuals and build your business around what the market is of employees is. But then proximity, without a doubt, really is 1.5 on that list of tips that we give people. Because if I need somebody and they have to come in, and I do this all the time, it's a $17-hour job, $17 an hour job. You find the perfect person through a resume. You find them through the application. They're perfect. You interview them, and they're just great. And I say, all right, one last thing. Are you going to hire the person? Yes, I'd love them. Okay. They live 19 miles away. Well, in Atlanta, 19 miles is a 2-hour commute.
Right.
So you've got to take a lot of things into account, but flexibility and proximity, without a doubt, are the 2 main pieces that we always recommend. And we work with a lot of employers that when we talk to them, we go through these situations with them, and we always say, what's your work environment like? What's your surrounding areas? What's the traffic like in your areas? Mm-hmm. And then let's start there, because like we just decided, it doesn't matter if they're the perfect fit. If they're too far away and they have to come in, then are they a real option for you?
Yeah, I know. And that was when I was doing that research, that was one of they asked, why do you want remote work? And there was a lot of different things, right? I love to take a nap. I like watching TV. There's things like that. But one of the number ones was time, to your point. They don't have the drive in. So it saves them that depending on how far they're out. And then also the cost of gas.
Exactly.
Right? We know depending on where you are, you're looking at our gas obviously has gone up over the last few years. So that's another thing. So when they look at that $17 an hour, and they're comparing that to a remote position, if they're driving 19 miles, basically 38 miles round trip every day, there's a cost to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really interesting. People focus on benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to offer, and again, let's talk more about the jobs that we know people have to show up for. I work in a hospital. Well, we're going to give you free uniforms.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. The reality is, well, we're going to pay for your dental insurance. Great. I make $17 an hour. I make $20 an hour. Those aren't as high on the list as my car just broke down and I don't get paid for 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've seen that is a true benefit that is very helpful, and it's the number one requested benefit from job seekers. And we have almost 12 million job seekers on our platform, and the number one benefit that they ask about when looking for work is earned wage access.
Yeah.
So again, understanding your market, a lot of people will say, well, we got a great vision plan. I'm 35 years old. I don't need a vision plan. What I do need is $500 to get my car fixed because I can't get to work next week.
Right. Yeah, we see that a lot. I know that when we work with partners like you and payroll providers and such, that's always a big thing that they offer and provide, right? Is or try to for their employers, because that is it's so beneficial for this workforce, to be able to do that. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's a great benefit, because in what we found too, to be quite honest, we work with a lot of grocery industry, those kind of things. And to your point, a lot of those workers, they don't care anything about dental or vision or those things because, to your point, they have other things to worry about.
It's a prioritization of life.
That's right. That's right. So no, that's a good point. The other thing, we talked about flexibility too. I know that's one of the things we have remote and non-remote workers here, right? And I know that's one of the things we always try to do is be flexible with work hours, but also be flexible with life events. Your kid's got a program, never miss a kid's program.
Yep.
You have to go home a little early because your kid's got a football game, go to the football game. So I think things like that really add up and make a difference, because you'd be surprised how many employees that we've talked to, they're like, well, wow, where I used to work, they wouldn't let us do that. They wouldn't let us leave. They wouldn't let us, or those kind of things. So I think those things help a lot, just that flexibility and just kind of being human with them.
Well, I think that goes a lot to the culture, and look, you can define culture in any way that you want to, but the reality is those few things that you just talked about mean that you care about me.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you just need me here to do this. I mean, yes, it's a business relationship when we start, but for retention purposes, people do not quit companies. People leave managers. 90, you tell me, 90% of the time somebody leaves the business is because of the manager.
Yeah, there's a conflict, whether it's personality, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So if somebody cares about you, or even, gives the premise of it, go to your kid's game. Oh, your car broke down. Let me get somebody else scheduled for you tomorrow. When are you going to get it fixed? Those kind of things are important. And I think, depending on whether you're trying to retain your employees, whether you're trying to attract new employees, taking a real common sense approach, which obviously if it was common, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
And we find so many employers don't do that we get all the time. People, nobody wants to work. Well, that's not necessarily true. Nobody wants to work for you.
Yeah.
And right, wrong, or indifferent, it's your business. if you want it to be attractive to customers somehow, you better make sure your employees are attractive to your customers. So you got to run that rabbit.
That's right. That's because it really doesn't matter who's sitting in the C-suite.
No,
because your customer's never going to see them.
that's right.
Or to your point earlier, that employee that's working, that maybe in the warehouse or on the front lines, those things, they never see that C-suite either. What they're dealing with that manager.
Yeah.
And so, whatever that culture is, it's just important that if your employees are happy, your customers are typically going to be happy.
And nobody, look, I mean, regardless of where you fall in the pecking order within a business, nobody likes stress.
Yeah.
Not that it's not a part of what we do for a living or for work or anything, and it's called work. That's why you get paid for it. But to try to give it some levity or give it some, if you're passionate about food service, I just was at a QSR conference last week, and I'm always enthralled with the cooks.
Mm-hmm.
Because regardless, fast, casual, whatever it is, the passion that they take for feeding someone and how, most restaurateurs start out because they like to cook. And the passion for that really can bleed through to your employees. And that inevitably is what's going to grow your business. Is because if your employee goes, man, that is the best chicken sandwich I've ever had, or the best pizza. Oh, well, I'm starting a new pizza joint. Who needs another new pizza joint? Mine's really good.
Yeah.
So it's something that has to flow through the people who actually make or break your business.
That's right. No, absolutely. And I think also, there's other things too, right? We talked about flexibility and proximity, which I do agree. I think that proximity is a big piece of this. But it's training. It's it's
Care.
giving. Yeah. And I think too, it's training. It's giving them a stairway that they can climb, right, in their career. It's also, I think there's we talk about it all the time because we're always trying to figure out what's the best way to have a good culture. And, remote's hard. Remote's hard to manage.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because for us, and we were talking about this the other day, just, there's so many times you walk down the hall and somebody grabs you and it's like, oh, look at this. Or, hey, I've got this question.
Yeah.
Or you're sitting at the water cooler and somebody's like, hey, did you watch the game this weekend? It doesn't have to be an intentional. It happens organically. Whereas from a remote perspective, it's harder because you have to intentionally pick up that phone.
That's right.
And make that call or click that Teams meeting or those things. You don't get those extra levels. And so it's very different in the remote. Now it works. Like I said, we've got remote workers and we do that, but it is much more of a challenge in trying to do that and make them feel a part and make them feel connected. Because I did see in my research, the likelihood of someone staying with you, if you look between fully remote, hybrid, and on-site is way above likely to stay, right? And I think a lot of that is it's easier to build that camaraderie.
Well, yes, but I do think, it's a conscious effort going back to culture on how connected do we want to be. If you require people to be on site all the time, and I come and I sit in a cube all day when it's quiet and nobody, there's no fun or there's no anything else, I could do this at home from my closet.
That's right.
Because there is a tremendous amount of I have to show up to sit.
Yep.
I don't really talk with people versus we have a remote situation, but every morning as the manager, I get on and I just say, good morning, everyone. How was dinner last? What did you have for dinner last night?
Yeah.
And you can do that with the tools that we have. You're not wasting people's time, but you're interacting with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it all of this stuff takes effort. That's why I say people leave managers. They don't quit companies. They leave the person who hasn't made them feel valued, likes me, or understands that life happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. And I agree with that. I agree with that. It's always what's that day to day. It's what that day to day environment is like.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it typically is
interesting.
going to be driven by that manager.
Yeah. When you talk about remote, I find, and this is something that I've been kind of watching, people who, when you're doing Zooms or Teams or any of this kind of stuff that are remote, that either never put their camera on or always have the background blurred.
Uh-huh.
Those employees versus employees who have their camera on and you see their background. This is something I'm working on. I don't have anything on it yet, but there is a difference in the longevity and the productivity of those types of people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If they've got their camera on, they've got their back, they don't have the background, if you will. Generally, they're going to be more involved in the meeting. They're going to be more engaged, and so I think you're right. There's a level there.
Well, and it helps. Like you have kids. I
Mhm.
can see pictures behind you. That helps me as a manager understand you. And because if you were in the office, those pictures might be on your desk.
Yep, that's right.
But if you're remote and you're always blurred and you're always this way, it makes it harder for me to manage. But I've got to step up and go, well, Chris, again, how was dinner last night?
Yeah.
I heard the kids were coming home from school. How was that? I understand you got weather. I know we're virtual, but I understand you got some weather you're dealing with. You all right?
Yeah.
Do you need some time to go bail water? So yeah, it's people.
Yep.
There's no robotic businesses yet.
That's right. Well, you never know. Musk is working on it.
Yeah, I know that. I know that. So when you're as an employer,
Yep.
Common sense, pay is what people immediately look at. Flexibility, in flexibility, even in the interviewing process. We know what you need to run your business, but if I really think you're awesome, I want you to be a part of my business. How can I be flexible to get you into my business and work with us? And then proximity. It's proximity goes to cost, it goes to time, which are the two most important things. Why that person is actually working, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, just taking those things into account really are the first two things, in my opinion, that you should look at whenever you're thinking about hiring someone.
Yeah. No, I agree. Especially in that.
Because as a job seeker, that's the first two things that they're thinking about.
Yeah.
So you might as well start the conversation with the two most important things.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, it seems simple. I know it's harder, but I think when you boil it down, that's really the best way in the hiring process to make sure that you're getting a good fit. And it has to be a good fit for both parties, right?
Right.
It can't just be a good fit for the employer.
And the first two most important things for both parties are pay rate to me, because I'm earning it and you're paying it.
Yep.
And what level of rigidness or flexibility do I need to make you be really happy and good in your business?
Yep. No, I agree.
Let's talk about everything else.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I know you guys, not for a commercial, but I do know, like, you guys with Juvo Jobs, with your platform, that's what you guys specialize in, is the proximity hire, right?
That, and we try to bring the human aspect of it back.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for bringing it up. And I know it's not
Yeah.
commercial. We use video, not video interviewing, but we give job seekers the ability to give a 30-second answer to 2 questions, general questions. So you as an employer can kind of get an understanding of what, if they're going to be in front of your customer or they're going to be working around your other employees. Attitude and aptitude are what really most of the jobs that when you're showing up for work, it's on-site training, those kind of things. So attitude and aptitude are really 2 of the most important things, unless you're talking about specific skills, obviously, like nursing and those kind of things.
Right.
Attitude and aptitude. And so we've elevated, and we use video so employers can take a look. And interestingly enough, and I don't know that you knew this, but I got tired of hearing employers say nobody reads my job descriptions. And that's primarily true because they look at pay rate and how far away you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, okay, job title, pay rate, and how far. Whoop. And so what we decided to do, because there's no platforms out there that help you as an employer, number one, compete, write a beautiful job description. Yes, that's important to understand as an employer, really what you want to communicate that you need. But if nobody reads them, there's no platforms that you can do anything about it. People
Right.
say, oh, I put it in bold and put it up top on my Indeed posting. So we actually rolled out a little while ago where, as an employer, you can do a video talking about the role, what you're looking for, and really what's important. So the job seeker can actually see you, hear how you talk about it. And all of a sudden, now they know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's an additional process, and we're more of a connector. People, we're trying to get local talent and local employers to really come together and understand if they should spend more time in the hiring process.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what we focus on is getting that connection where we can determine, hey, Chris, I'm looking, I didn't even know you were a block away. This app notified me that you're behind the building that I never go behind. So I would have never known you were there, but you seem like a cool guy, and I'd love to learn more about it.
Yeah. I think that's a great option because I know for one of the biggest things when you post on job boards, and it is, hey, I want a background screening specialist. We have a requirement that you have to have experience, da da da. And then, you get literally 500 applicants and not one of them has any experience. But you still, and they even have to answer a question. Do you have experience? And so I think that would work very well if they have to, if they kind of go through that video of that employer talking about the job, trying to get them to one, there's that connection, but also trying to get them to understand what you're really looking for. Because I think that's one of the biggest disconnects at this point. I think job application in a lot of times is just clicking the box. They just go down through all the jobs and click the box.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You were more on the legal HR side of this. I have never seen somebody work for a job description.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen anybody hire and put a resume or an application in a warehouse or in the back of a store or stocks a shelf or any of those kind of things. Business today is about, you can walk up to a kiosk today, but not, and coming from the QSR, sorry, it's on the mind. 90% of people walk right by the kiosk and go up to the register and still talk to someone. So if you realize that, and again, that's what we try to do, is just get that personal interaction going. Awareness, local awareness, and personal are really the things that we feel are the most important things to then decide if you should spend more time on your hiring process.
Right.
This is sourcing. This is getting you, we're a sourcing tool. We create awareness about you locally to as many people as possible to give you the opportunity. Because what we find is, to your point, I go to Indeed, I get 800 pieces of paper. No one's ever hired a sheet of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go through all it's really funny. A lot of times people go, with Juvo, typically you get a lower volume than an Indeed. Well, I could increase the volume all day long just by increasing the awareness. But we just talked about if they live 18 miles away, you're not going to hire them.
You're not going to get them. Yeah.
Why do you want to waste your time on all of them? And you can't talk to a sheet of paper. If you have the opportunity to view 5 or 6 videos and know yes or no, that's somebody that I'd love to learn more about,
Mm-hmm.
then go through that process, as opposed to spending time. The average time spent on a resume is 6 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is if that applicant takes the time to shoot that video and put it into that app, then at least they're interested, right? There has to be some level of being intentional about that job.
But it's just like the employer we've given them the opportunity to do a video, and we don't have enough numbers yet, but it is somewhere in the 5 to 6 times more that they will apply to a job with a video
mm-hmm.
than not. Now, keep in mind, we had one gentleman, and I may have told you this story, who did a video. He was like, nobody's, he's got low pay rates. Nobody wants to work. Well, Billy, try doing a video. And he did this video, and nobody applied because his video is, my name is Billy. We work hard. You got to be here on time. Like, what are we talking about? Flexibility,
and
likability, just like what you want in your employees. So yeah. I could go on all day about it.
Yeah, they need to get the marketing department in on that one. So well, good. Well, no, I think this was great and very helpful, and I appreciate you joining us. So if somebody needs to contact you, how would they contact you?
They go to LinkedIn, Mark Emery, Emery. I'm based in Atlanta, or you could go to our website, juvojobs.com, or you can go to the App Store, Juvo Jobs on the app, and then we have a way to connect with us there. And we love working with local neighborhoods. It's really fun to be. We've got, like I said, over almost 12 million seekers in local neighborhoods all around the country. So it's a lot of fun to bring a little more common sense approach that seems to really resonate and be helpful.
Well, good. Well, we enjoy working with you guys, and again, I appreciate you jumping on, and I think there's a lot of great information.
Chris, thanks for having us, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the My HR Buzz podcast, presented by My HR Concierge. For more information on this topic and many others, please visit our blog at www.myhrbuzz.com. It's a free resource and has a lot of great information on HR and employee screening related topics. If you like the podcast, please do 3 things for us. 1, leave a review. 2, subscribe to the podcast. And 3, tell a friend. Our podcasts are available on iTunes, Spotify, and many other places where you get your favorite podcasts. If you'd like to provide ideas or feedback on future shows, send us an email at podcast@myhrbuzz.com, or you can reach us at 855-538-6947, extension 108. This is Chris Cooley with My HR Concierge. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to sharing more topics with you in the future.